Hey there folks, welcome back. Today we're going to be making a vacuum truck. Now I know there's a million videos on how I make my own vacuum truck on YouTube, but there's going to be one more. First you need a truck. This is a Freightliner FL70 with a Cummins B series, and you need a tank. I had somebody mount this because they got a bigger crane than I do, and truck's in overall good condition, tank's in overall good condition. But it doesn't work by itself, so we need to somehow put a vacuum pump on it and plumb that and figure out how we're going to turn it. So that's where the fun begins. Now this was my first choice because I had this pump. It's a Battioni, which is an Italian-made pump, and even though it doesn't say that on there, you can always tell an Italian pump by the hair under the arms. Now once I took this one apart, I realized since I had to beat all the vanes out of the rotor, but this one's probably not going to be suitable unless I rebuild it myself or send it out and pay somebody maybe $500-800 to replace it. So I got another one, and I just decided to send that one out and let's do that instead. Something a little more modern. Maybe it's not as big, but it's going to handle the job just fine. Now if you're wondering why I got a BB gun on the bench, I've got a field mouse in my shop that I swear thinks it's a honey badger. It's standing on the toolbox sometimes while I'm going in and out of it to get tools. This thing is fucking fearless, man. Here's what we're going to turn instead. I got a Pearson pump here. It's just like another one that I run. It's a knockoff of a Moro pump, which is also Italian. But this one here is made right in the US of A in Galva, Illinois? Something like that. I don't know. Somewhere in my own stomping grounds. So we're going to put this thing on there and figure out how to turn it. I sent the truck out to get a PTO, and it turns out it doesn't have the gear in the transmission to turn a PTO, which both Freightliner and the manufacturer of the transmission said it did. So long story short, we're going to have to spin her another way. Maybe I could get one of those hamster wheels and just trap this field mouse I got, make him turn it. So what's in the bowl, bitch? I mean the box, man. Check it out. Oh yeah, GX390, that's what. So we got a couple considerations to make here. First of all, how are we going to mount this to the truck? I got the old plate from the old pump when it was a PTO driven shaft off of an older truck. So I'm going to start there. I don't know if I'm going to fab up another one or not, but this is kind of convenient because it's already got the uprights for the for bolting it onto the frame rail, and then this would have to sit down lower underneath the frame rail. Well, I got all that room between the cab and the tank, and I kind of reserved that. Instead of shortening up the truck, I wanted to leave that for possibly mounting the pump and engine there, or containers, toolbox. I mean, you could put all kinds of stuff back there. So I just wanted the space. I know it might look weird, but a lot of those trucks look like that. So another consideration is how high is it going to be? Are we going to belt drive this, or are we going to be able to drive it direct? Well, the consideration that's most important is the RPM of the pump. It's a vane pump, so when the rotor starts to spin, the vanes have to splatter out like so. And if it's not running at the right RPM, if it overspeeds, it'll fail quick, and if it underspeeds, it'll fail quick. So you kind of got to have it dialed in within a couple hundred, I think. I mean, the other one I use, what? Now, another important consideration is which way does this have to spin? From the factory, the Pearson pumps are counterclockwise rotation when you're looking at the shaft. So, for a space issue, the truck shop that was going to put the PTO in set the pump out, had them reverse it, so now it's got to spin clockwise. Well, if the stub of the Honda crankshaft comes out and mounts to this with like a regular, just a Lovejoy coupler or something like that, it'll be spinning the right way because that's clockwise rotation from the view of the flywheel. So we can actually just butt it right up here, and then I might have a stance issue, or might have to, raise up the Honda a little bit. Most likely it looks like it's probably going to be a little bit lower. Not a problem. We'll fabricate that when the time comes, but I'm going to have to resort to looking at the paperwork to determine if the RPMs are going to match up. If not, I'm going to have to put these side by side, put a pulley that's the right size for this, and a pulley that's the right size for the Honda engine to get the ratio right, and then belt it up, which I'd much rather not do if I can go direct drive, because then there's nothing to fail. Know what I'm saying? So I'm walking out the door, going down to Berry Bearing or Motion Industries, whatever they call it now, and I'm going to see if I can find a Lovejoy coupler or have an actual engineer look at this thing and see what's the best way to turn this. I'm not really into that kind of stuff. Out of the corner of my fucking eye, I see a coupler from an old pump that I took off of something, and I tried to sell this thing on Craigslist probably 6 times. So I'm like, what are the chances? I put my vernier caliper in there, or vernier, whatever you call it, and I'll be goddamn, I'll be kiss my ass, tie me to an anthill and smear my ears with jam. This is the right size for the shaft of the pump. Now, I'm pretty sure the GX390 is a 1-inch, which this is, which means that is. I'm going to have to take it out of the box and see if it's an 1 1/8 crank. If it is, well, this doesn't fucking work. But I got to go back to the paperwork anyway and see if the RPMs are going to match up. And I'll tell you what, I'm looking over my shoulder here. If it's close enough, I'm going to do it, because I really don't want to belt it up. This would be the shit. Well, I found the spec for the PB3000 RPM pump. Guess how many RPM? 1,000. Plus or minus 20% maximum. So, 800 to 1,200. Let's see what happens. Oh man, isn't she pretty? Never thought I'd say this, but I'm disappointed that it didn't come with a manual. Every other Honda engine I think I ever bought in my life, and I was a Honda engine dealer for a while, had a little manual come with it. This thing, nothing, except no oil in the engine in every fucking language spoken on the planet Earth, and then some. You know what? People still do it. I've seen it happen. Anyway, I'm gonna have to go online and see what the RPMs are and if we can bolt this right up. Can't believe it doesn't say on here anywhere. I can't believe I can't remember. Well, a quick check of the Googler tells me that this thing runs at 3,600 RPM, which is too fast. 2,500, it's too fast. 1,200 is going to be like a high idle. So I'm not going to be able to bolt this thing direct. I'm going to have to belt it up, or they do make a gearbox that you can put on the crankshaft, I'm sorry, the crankcase cover. Bolts right up into there, and then there's a reduction in there with a friction clutch and such. I got that set up on the Roper. I don't know if you saw the Roper thing, and I can't remember if it was 2-to-1 and I thought it was 4-to-1, or it was 4-to-1 and I thought it was 2-to-1. It wasn't really that long ago. I suppose I could go back and look at the tape, or I could look that up too and see if that's a good way to do this. I'd really like to use that Lovejoy or whatever the connector is versus belting it up, because then you don't have belts flopping around and shit. I got another one that I set up like that, and knock on Chinese plastic, those belts have never failed, and they pumped for 5 years, 6 years, but they do get to flopping. Alrighty, well, I called Bearing headquarters or Motion Industries and talked to a guy named Steven. And he's acting like one of those pretentious wine dicks at the liquor store. So, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to measure this out and do this like I did the last time. That's who I went through. We'll call that 11 1/4. Shaft size is the same as my pump. 1 1/4. Yep. Shaft or keyway size is 5/16. Yes, sirree, Bob. This one is 4-inch. With a 1-inch shaft and a 1/4-inch keyway. So I'm just going to order 2 double pulleys, and these belts are pretty shitty looking, so I'm going to order 4 of the belts. And since the number's not on the side anymore, or on the backs of them anymore, I had the foresight to write on the frame with the MIG welder what size the belts are, and they are in fact a B57. So fuck you, Steven. I'm going to order these from Granger. Alright, well, I can tell this video is going to get a little bit long for your attention span, so we'll call this part 1.